now you can go.
Okay.
Recording.
This is a meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission. I would like to call the meeting to order at 3:01 and confirm that we do have a quorum. I have a script that I need to read in accordance with open meeting law, but could all the commissioners please announce themselves?
Angus McLeod is here.
Clement Durkees is here. Georgia Raisman is here.
David Silver, present.
Okay. And then I think we have some guests. If you could announce them yourselves.
John Walker. My wife, Carrie Walker.
Carrie Walker.
Okay, thank you for joining us. I'm just going to read this script. As a preliminary matter, this is Hedges Report, Chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me, which I have done, and all are present. We also have a member of the staff who is Holly Bacchus, staff.
Present.
So this open meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus, we have been advising gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment, but we will feature comment on anything that's on our agenda. For this meeting, the Nantucket Historical Commission is convened by video conference via Zoom app, as published on the town's website. The meeting is being recorded. All attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and to take care not to share your screen. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted unless the chair notes otherwise. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda as we conclude. I'm going to go down the line of the members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're speaking. Remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If you wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair to appear to identify yourself. Okay. Any voting will be taking place by roll call. Okay, so I've read what I needed to read. So we convened this meeting to discuss the consideration of how our preservation function in this town determines if a building is contributing or not contributing. The idea of this discussion was brought up by a hearing that's going to happen tonight. The owners of the property, John and Carrie Walker, are present on the call. And I just wanted to say, for the benefit of everyone on the commission, for the benefit of anyone who might see this recording, and also for the benefit of the Walkers, that we are not reviewing the Walkers application. We are not reviewing the plans for the application. I personally watched all of the testimony of 2 hours and 50 minutes of testimony that happened over the course of 2019. The HDC deliberated extensively about the property. It's their job to do the architectural review, and it's not something that we would review. We are primarily concerned with protecting the historic assets of Nantucket, which are its structures, its historic places. And we are concerned with the process of making sure that the historic assets are surveyed and identified. So that is why I called the meeting. And I would like to invite John and Carrie, since they have come to the meeting, if they'd like to say anything, as long as you understand, Mr. and Mrs. Walker, that we are not discussing your application.
Understood. Yes.
Would you like to make any comment?
Yes, I would. So my name is John Walker. I'm the owner of 112 Walnut Road. I renew my objection to the lack of sufficient notice to be prepared. I'm going to proceed while I'm reserving all of my rights and remedies without waiving any of them. I've been a homeowner on Nantucket for 30 years. By no legitimate measure is 112 Walnut to be deemed to be contributing. We ask the board find that it is not. No sufficient evidence exists to demonstrate that the building is contributing. The great weight of the evidence that does exist demonstrate to a certainty that it is not contributing. The town's objective professional staff reviewed this matter with the Historical District Commission. The HDC concluded that the building is non-contributing. This correspondence dated January 27th, sorry for my notes on the bottom, by Kathy Flynn, which I would like included in the record. Can I include this letter in the record?
Yeah, that letter is that the letter that's in the select board packet tonight?
Correct.
It's also in our packet, so the commissioners have it.
So it is part of this record.
It's part of our meeting materials, yes.
Great, thank you. Nothing has changed to justify the reversal of that finding. Moreover, according to the town's independent judgment of records as reflected in the building structure inventory from Nantucket Island Architectural and Cultural Resources Survey completed in 1989, the building was A, built in 1970, B, it was designed by an architect identified as unknown, C, it was by a builder identified as unknown, D, in an architectural style listed as NA, E, in a building type described as, in quotes, a box. And let me go slowly on this one. The records list in the historical and architectural significance as unknown. I'd like to be sure that the record of this proceeding includes the town's 1989 survey. Can I make sure that?
Yes, also part of our meeting materials that were posted, so.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You do know, Mr. Walker, this is not a hearing.
I understand. I understand it's not a hearing, but I also want to make sure that these facts are on the record.
Understood.
So based on the findings, the town itself concluded in its own records that the house is non-contributing. It's clear to say, it's clear as day right in the town's own survey. No legitimate basis exists to reverse that finding. To be sure, Nantucket is associated with a rich historical tradition in the whaling industry, but let's be clear, the industry was not booming in 1970 when this house was built. The great discipline of the historic preservation does violence to its good name when it teaches false history lessons and allows its powers to be misappropriated for improper tactical advantage. The history of Nantucket is not a history of 1970s, and to declare this building as contributing would be to teach false history lesson. Our home is cute in size. Yes, it is. We love it. But we have 4 children. And I would point out that the previous owner expanded 4 feet out the front to an already existing oversloped roof that now goes only 4 feet off the ground. It's not attractive. Lastly, and let me be polite, we are in a long-standing and most unfortunate battle with our neighbor, Gail Arnold. She is our neighbor. She's challenged and objected to our every attempt to exercise our legitimate rights to renovate and expand our home consistent with all of the town's codes. The timing of this sudden call to order of the NHC on the heels of her recent defeat at the HDC is suspect, to say the least. We would ask that you remove that suspicion from the air by finding this building to be non-contributing. That finding is consistent with the repeated findings by the town's professional independent staff and consistent with the recent decision by the HDC. That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Walker. I just want to emphasize that this is not a hearing. We're not going to be making a finding about if your building is contributing or not contributing.
I know, I understand that completely, but there is going to be a vote whether it's contributing or not.
And we are not voting on that. And
Okay.
we convene the meeting because our mission is to protect the historic assets of Nantucket and to advocate for the updating of their surveying.
Understood.
If you could let me finish.
Sorry.
Okay. This isn't a conversation. You've made a presentation and now we're going to continue with our meeting, if you don't mind.
Got it.
So I'm saying for the benefit of our commissioners and the public that the survey the surveys that are used now to consider if a building is contributing or not contributing were created in 1989. There's a standard when you consider if a structure is even eligible to be thought of as historic, and it's 50 years. If you want to consider if a car is classic, you think, all right, the car needs to be 30 years old. If you want to consider if a structure is historic, it needs to be 50 years old. So any building that was not 50 years old in 1999 would have been considered by default non-contributing unless it had some overwhelmingly obvious contribution. One example not on Nantucket is the Cape Canaveral Space Center was deemed to be a contributing historic or a significant historic structure in a historic landmark that wasn't 50 years old because of what happened there. So that's how preservationists think about structures. So at this point, I just have to advise the commissioners that this is part of an ongoing discussion. I wanted to have a discussion with everyone about whether or not we might make a statement at the select board this evening about the process of considering if a structure is historic. At this point, I have to advise everybody that I would say it would not be appropriate for us to make a statement at this point. We have a longer mission of updating surveys, of educating the public, including the walkers and people like the walkers, that the contributing significant period for Nantucket is actually through 1975. This is accepted and acknowledged by the U.S. Park Service. And the reason for the extension through 1975 is the significant commitment to preservation and revivalist styles of architecture, like the cottage that the walkers own and many other buildings on Nantucket. So that's a public education process that a historical commission is rightly engaged in. It's not about any individual application. So I would like to hear from all of the commissioners. I'll call on everyone to speak, but I'd like to advise you as your chair that I don't currently believe making a statement at the select board meeting will be helpful to what we want to achieve, and it would be potentially problematic in other ways. So that being said, I'd like to just open the floor to other commissioners and our staff, our preservation planner, Holly, who'd like to comment.
Hi, I will make a statement of the fact that I was not privy to this application when it went before the HDC. I want to lay that out there right now. At the time, I was at a transition between the planning board and HDC. I do have a preservation background. I'll say that for the record. When it comes to our NHL designation, that's what we go by as a National Historic Landmark District. With that said, there is this thought that all the surveys that were done in 1989 with the HDC are up to date. They're not. Obviously, they were done 30 years ago. With that said, once the time goes over, there are structures that are technically could be deemed historic because of their age. Obviously, it's more of looking at the architecture. It's looking at, is there any other significance to it based on the criteria from the National Park Service. With that said, that's why, as I've been saying many times, and my directors also agree, that we need to update our surveys. Updating our survey is one of the things that obviously this commission is going to help the NHL be able to do. So I just wanted to mention that. And that the mindset of not understanding the criteria for something that could be deemed eligible needs to be understood by everybody that's involved with this process. So that's my statement.
Do any other commissioners want to make any statement about this idea of the landmark status or evaluating contributing structures?
Hi, it's Angus. I think there's a widespread misconception that the only historically significant structures are those that were built during the whaling era, and we've had other significant structures, even mid-century modern structures, whether it's Vincent Scully or other structures that were constructed on the island mid 20th century. There was a lot of horrible stuff built mid-century, and a number of things that none of us would have ever wanted to see built. But there does need to be some sort of common standard, and as far as I understand, it's the 50-year is one of the first triggers, unless something is just especially significant. So I think that so there isn't confusion in the future, there needs to be a clearer understanding, and I think that all that will become more apparent when we get further through the educational process that we're pursuing now.
My comment in reading the package, this Clement turkeys, in reading the package that you sent to us, which I very much enjoyed reading, thank you, Holly, was the idea of completing our survey, which I totally support. It's got to get done, and as many people as can put their heads together on this would be great. And also the idea of having a description of the characters of all of our island's separate communities, Sconset, Quidnet, Wauwinet, Nantucket. So whether you say if you're contributing or not would make a difference in each of those communities. Thank you.
Yeah, Georgia?
Sorry, I don't feel that I have enough information on any of this to make a useful contributory comment about this. I'm sorry.
David, anything you wanted to add or express?
No, I think I'm on the same page as Georgia. I don't feel as if I have enough, background and adequate information on hand to make a comment at this time. But I do appreciate Mr. and Mrs. Walker's comment. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm not going to make a motion at this particular meeting.
Can I ask a question? I apologize.
Sure.
I'm just curious. So they're not this meeting is not going to vote on our property whether it's contributed. I was not aware of that, and I think it could have been cleared up, Hillary, if you and I spoke. So apologies.
Yeah. So, Mr. Walker, I know you tried to contact me. I just didn't feel that it was appropriate for me to have a private conversation with you. I know you have an extended legal battle going on. We're not reviewing your specific application. We are interested in the concept, the process of how Our architectural review body, which is the HDC, determines if a property is contributing or not contributing. And we wanted to meet, and we, by the way, we can meet anytime we want to meet. We just have to give 48 hours notice to the public. When you reached out to me, I let you know because I knew that you probably wouldn't be regularly checking our website. And I wanted to be sure you knew because I thought it was.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And I just felt that any conversation should happen in public. So
sure. Completely understand, and thank you for clarifying that.
I apologize.
Hillary, can I ask a question?
Yes.
What I guess I don't understand, you know, I know we weren't the subject of a ruling by your committee, but why was our property used as an example, given the number of projects and demolitions that happen in Wauwinet for homes that are much older than ours?
I don't think we're using your property as an example. I think we're discharging our duty to look at everything the HDC does. I mean, we look at everything that's discussed. So I understand why you might feel that you're being used as an example. But that certainly wasn't the, well, let's just say everyone's an example.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I think that this is a continuing conversation. We are meeting again on the 26th, I believe. Don't quote me on that. We will post the meeting. We're also having a joint meeting with the HGC to talk about how we work together and support one another. And we'll have the opportunity to air our concerns about what is considered a misconception, which is a misconception of a misconception about the contributing period of Nantucket's history. So if there's no further comments, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
So moved. Seconded.
Okay. I'm not going to ask for a roll call to adjourn the meeting. I can see you all. I see you're all saying that we can adjourn. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Hillary.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.